Okay, and we're ready. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for July 28th, 2026. The first item on our agenda this evening is roll call.
Raza? Here. Lancy?
Here.
Beck? Here. Malay? Absent. Malone? Absent. Wolf?
Here.
Solfa? Here. Barron? Here. Lehman? Here. Lohman? Absent. Pieper?
Here.
Fehrenbach?
Here.
Anderson?
Here.
White?
Here.
11 present, 3 absent.
Next would be the reminder to please speak into the microphone for the BATV recording. You can come up, adjust the microphone however you need to make sure that you use that. Item 3 is approval of minutes from July 14th, 2026. Do we have any questions, comments, anything on it? I think we're good. Can I get a motion on that?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, then on to item 4, which is items to be removed, added, or changed. Do we have anything?
Nope.
Anything? Okay. I'll go right on to matters from the public for anything that's not on the agenda tonight. Is anybody here for anything not on the agenda? Come on up.
Good evening to everyone on the council and with the city staff and everybody else here in attendance today. Thank you for this opportunity to allow me to introduce myself to the community. My name is Dawn Marie Mueller, and I am a resident of Windmill Manor at 2400 Hawks Drive. I'm here today to respond in my personal capacity as a resident who lives right on Braeburn Marsh there by the McKee Road tributary. I'm responding to the agenda item that you folks discussed a couple of weeks ago and the memo regarding the care and cost to care for the marsh, the long-term maintenance funding for the Braeburn Regional Stormwater Detention Facility. I am a space physicist and solar radio astronomer with a background in high-energy physics from Fermilab. I am a type of physicist known as a heliogeophysicist. I study the connection between the sun and the earth. For example, I monitor the sun every day for solar flares and other solar activity that stimulates weather, including severe storms with strong rains. And I also study the effect on plants and animals on Earth. So I have here with me a native tiger lily that I'm growing from root so that the native plants of Kane County can be represented. I'm of old Illinois pioneer stock, so I am very much attached to our local flora and fauna. And I appreciate the effort that the city has put into the prairie and marsh plantings in that stormwater area. I study rainwater and hydrology and hydraulics, and I am very interested in joining any working group with respect to that acreage there with the McKee Road tributary. I not only do I monitor the sun, but I also run down to the USGS NOAA stream gauge down by Mill Creek after it rains to make sure that the gauge is reading properly and to see what I see. So I have unauthorized installed a small 800 square foot garden next to the property of Windmill Manor at the site, the point across the street from the lot behind Walmart that has become a military battalion full of invasive Silphium teasel plants. And they keep invading your marsh, and that's part of the great expense to take care of that marsh, to control that particular plant as well as other invasive species. So we had a very significant problem with people dumping trash on Hawks Drive. It got very bad, and I'm the baby in that building, so I am the one who ends up having to go out and pick all the trash up against the wall that surrounds the marsh. And it got to the point where people were dumping small appliances in addition to household trash. And I came out one day and found a mattress, and I said, that's it, I have to do something to stop this and put the kibosh on this dumping. So I installed a small temporary garden as a sort of a concept project to see if it would stop the dumping and if I could intercept the military operation of the invasive teasels from across the street, because they were trying to plant themselves right adjacent to the wall so that they could rappel over the wall and take over the marsh. And that would be a huge expense because they would be hopping right on top of some drains. So I had to take some emergency action, and unfortunately, going up the normal chain of command of trying to work through the management of Windmill Manor was not working because of the constant turnover of managers, site managers at that building. Every time I thought something was moving to get the city apprised of what was going on, a manager would leave. And so I just had to manage the garbage dumping situation and the invasive plant situation ad hoc. But what I would like to do is I'm here to ask, with the blessing of the council, if I could work with V3 Engineering. I have a lot of familiarity with the marsh and its environs and the hydraulics there because I live right there and I have observed it very, very carefully. I spend an enormous amount of time around and in the marsh, and I have observed the plant life and the animal life and the hydraulics of the area and how it responds to storms. So I will be happy to provide my contact information to the older folks for my ward. Yes.
Oh, you can contact me or leave me your information. I'm the Director of Public Works, and the engineering division oversees that. We do have V3 that works on it, and we have WBK that does come out, and they've been there since the beginning doing an evaluation of the site and giving us feedback on that.
I greatly appreciate that. To give you an example of the type of situation that I study, the little girl who tragically passed away a few weeks ago in Batavia up on the capsized boat in Lake Geneva, little Kate Schmidt. I attended her wake. The day of that severe storm, so you've got Lake Geneva, you've got water, you've got severe storms. Right as that incident happened right around noon, the sun was right on the north-south meridian for Lake Geneva. And just at the moment that it was transiting the meridian, there was a very powerful solar flare. And that solar flare added a concussive effect to the severe storms that had already been forecast. So that gives you an example of the type of hydrological situation that I study with the sun, the severe storms, the flow of water through an area, the effects on plants, and what I can sense from plants and animals that tell me something about what's going on the sun. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Anybody else for tonight? Okay, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Alderperson Barron?
Thank you. The consent agenda reads as, pause just for a minute. This is for the variance for on Mallory is something I would love for just a brief discussion and to know more about, if we can pull it off of consent. Okay.
Sure. Okay, you can go ahead.
That was it, right?
We can go ahead and present it.
Okay. The consent agenda reads as follow. Ordinance 2026-32, variances for proposed site improvements and existing building conditions, 126 South Mallory Avenue. Amen Gofor, RMKU Properties LLC applicant.
Okay, go ahead.
I was reading through this and I actually found it quite interesting because that lot is just in my ward, I think, actually, and nearby my home. And so I would just
would love a little bit of information from staff about this and just what the proposed plans are.
Sure. The applicant and their company is looking to, or they purchased the property a few years ago in 2021, I believe, or 2020, and they are looking to adapt and reuse the space. They do have a basically counter or cabinetry business, I should say, not counter business, that they would be looking to propose to put in the space. The property does require some extensive amount of work, as you might imagine, because it's been idle probably for basically, well, the last use of the property was basically storage that probably was being there from the mid 90s to about 2017 or 2016 or so. The property is not presently on utilities, so it'll be connected to utilities. The inside was basically gutted, so they'll have to basically redo the whole interior. So the variances are actually to facilitate the parking lot portion of the project that they would be looking to do. They're looking to add about 22 parking spaces. We rezoned that property to be neighborhood commercial a few years ago, and with the setbacks that are required for the neighborhood commercial district, they would require zoning relief. Basically, it's a lot of small encroachments, generally into the required landscape area. So that's what they were asking for relief for. The Zoning Board of Appeals did find that because of the circumstances of the property, the history of it, it was subdivided 2 times in the 80s and 90s, basically to reconfigure the lotting. So they did find that there were, or that the findings were met for a zoning variance. So they did recommend approval of the variances as proposed. There was also, because the neighborhood commercial district also anticipates smaller buildings, there is one variance to allow a larger use within that space. Essentially, as a single-use building, there's really not a great way to split up that building with what they're proposing to do into other spaces or to otherwise comply with that. And then the other variance that was being considered was an existing setback for the west or front setback. So those were the items that were considered. As I identified in the plan there, or within the memo, there's a number of West Town area plan goals that would be adapted by, or would be advanced by this. So the recommendation for tonight is to recommend approval of the variance as presented.
I full-heartedly recommend this. Wholeheartedly. This has been empty forever. People are always talking about, you want to beautify this little corridor right here. That's what they're trying to do, and putting a business in there. The property, the building next to it burnt down. So it's ready for some improvements, and I think this is a great idea.
And I should add, one of the conditions of approval would be to address a environmental issue on the property in terms of an old tank. So that would be part of the project as well. So that's another element of it that addresses. Yeah.
Are they going to remove the tank, or are they going to fill it in place?
I believe they are removing and remediating.
Okay, removing it. Okay, that's better. Yes. Lancy?
And I think is it the building owner that has the cabinetry business?
Yes.
Right. So, would I love to see something other than a cabinetry business going there? Yes, great. I have actually heard from a couple of people who are looking at that property, but so be it. If that's what he wants to do with the property, love it.
Just for my clarification, this does include that large vacant brick building.
Yes. So they would be rehabilitating the building that is immediately south of the old MasterCast property. So the vacant lot at the corner, it's that lot, or it's the building immediately south. The area that would be the parking area is kind of right now has like some small like brick walls and other elements of the original. Basically, the original building went into that whole space. So they would be cleaning up that area, and that would be where the parking would go.
Is this in TIF 4?
This is, yes.
Okay, so Have they requested any grants or anything from the TIF?
We did work with them on that. They're not currently asking for any funds right now.
We going to try and, with the water main work that's happening right now on Mallory, are we going to try and work that in so that way we're not tearing a street back up after it gets fixed?
Yeah, we have put them in touch with Jeremy to kind of try and coordinate that. And I know I again suggested that they reach out to them if they hadn't yet. So that is something we are trying to make sure is coordinated.
With the work that's going on there right now would be the time to do it.
Yeah, it's started
Yeah, it's
today.
already
So
started.
I don't know that we're waiting on, I need to get a schedule. Jeremy had an emergency this morning to deal with. But I can find out and let you guys know when that's supposed to be completed. I just don't know that.
Even if they just get it stubbed over to the property so that they don't have to tear the street back up again a second time, because I don't think right now that it has water, power, or anything to that building.
Yeah, I don't know that we're far enough along on their approvals to coordinate that, unfortunately, but it would be ideal.
Okay. I was trying to think ahead. But yes, it will be very nice to see something over there than kids sneaking in and out of the building and weekends. Okay.
Thank you.
No other comments? Can I get a motion on this one?
I'll move to approve that item that was on the consent agenda that we just discussed.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Do we want to talk about that on Monday night, or do you guys want to talk about it? Because I won't be here. Okay, we'll just leave it then on consent for Monday. Okay, thank you, Drew. Up next on the regular agenda is presentation on the modern domestic woman from Elizabeth Rago.
Thanks, Alan. I'll go ahead and introduce Elizabeth. Elizabeth is the founder of this organization, and she's going to talk a little bit about the services that her organization provides, along with some upcoming events. So thank you for being here tonight, Elizabeth.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love Batavia. I live in St. Charles, full disclosure, but my children went to Emmanuel for several years over here in Batavia, so you guys always have a big place in my heart. As Jennifer had mentioned, my name is Elizabeth Rago. I'm the founder and executive director of the Modern Domestic Woman. MDW Cares is our nonprofit arm. And what we do is we are dedicated to helping women who are going through some kind of rough season in life. I'm sure we all have been through some kind of rough season. So what does that mean? It means if any woman in our community or her family is going through, they're rebuilding their life after divorce, they're having mental health challenges, they are experiencing postpartum stress around their health, we are a jumping off point to find services in our community. So what I try and do is help women. We have several different entry points to how women in our community can find us. We have support groups that meet. Those are free to community members. One of our moms groups meets at the Batavia Library twice a month. We also have pop-up events where we sell product from local makers that helps fund our nonprofit as well. So we were at the Batavia Farmers Market on opening day, and we provide free resources, education that's authored by local therapists, women's health practitioners, etc. So we just kind of like pop up all throughout the community in places that women would naturally be visiting. And why have this organization? It comes from a lived experience of my own. In 2010, my husband was in a really bad car accident. He broke his back, and that one episode spiraled into our lives just taking a really horrible turn. Between raising 3 children under the age of 5, having him break his back, medical bills, he lost his job, I was working 2 jobs. It kind of seems like when something like that happens to you, everything else goes wrong. And what I noticed was that even though I had a nice, solid core group of friends, there was a huge isolation and shame around that rough time that I was going through. And yes, there are so many amazing organizations in our community and throughout Kane County that help But when you're going through something for the first time, you only know what you know. And if you don't know of a divorce lawyer to go to or a mental health provider, you're kind of in this weird limbo. So what my organization aims to do is to remove that isolation and give women a landing point to just be and process and explore resources when you have the capacity to reach out to those resources. And really it was because I felt so alone and I didn't know who to reach out to. And thankfully I had a core group of ladies who maybe had not gone through what I did, but they were definitely willing to sit with me in that ugliness and help me find support. So fast forward 16 years later, and I have a nonprofit organization. We have 3 support groups that meet each month, one in Batavia, one in Geneva, and one in St. Charles. And then we also have different events. Free events include a Rebuilding Your Life After a Divorce workshop, where we have a lawyer, a therapist, a financial consultant, kind of sounds like a joke, financial consultant, a lawyer, and a therapist walk into a bar. But all 3 of these amazing local resources and subject matter experts come and meet in a room, and all women have to do is show up to gain education and empower them in their situation. We also help link women up to a vetted list of mental health providers that don't have wait lists. So within 24 to 48 hours, they can get in and get an appointment. So those are just a couple of examples of what we do to help women in our community. We also have social events because we can't talk about the depressing things of life 24/7. So we like to provide women with social situations where we can just sit down and be and have a nice time. We have painting events. Some of these are ticketed, but some of those are free. And then we also have community events. We have a period poverty initiative that is happening right now, where we are working to raise funds and period products in our community, not only for women and children in our schools who might be, experiencing that season, but also for young women who are incarcerated or being released. So that's one of our initiatives that people can volunteer and be involved in. And then in the fall, we have something called the Wildflower Project, which focuses on helping teenage girls find an outlet other than like traditional sports. And it's all around agriculture and gardening. So it's a multi-generational like mentorship program, which is really exciting. So there's tons more information in the little packet that I handed out, but really just here to introduce myself and let you guys know that there's opportunities if you or somebody that you know in our community is looking for services and support. That is it.
Anybody have any questions?
You mentioned 3 social platforms. As people are always on their phone looking for, how are they going to find you?
Yes, so we're both on Instagram and Facebook, and that's really all I can handle. So I can't go anymore. Until I get an intern next spring, we can only handle those 2 social media platforms. But our website, there's a QR code actually at the back. It's mdwcares.com is our website, and that has all of our resources and free downloads and events that we have coming up. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next is, which is ordinance 2026-33, variances on accessory structure setbacks, 1120 Essex Court.
Okay. The property owners, Jill and Chris CDV, are located at 1120 Essex Court, have applied for 2 variances from the zoning code. A public hearing was held for the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals on July 15th. Those variances that are being requested are both from Table 2.104, Additional Regulations B. The first is related to accessory structures, interior side yard setback requirements. They are requesting a variance of approximately They have a setback of 4.5 feet instead of the required 10, and they are requesting a variance of approximately 5.5 feet. The second variance is for the rear yard setback. They have a setback of approximately 6.66 feet instead of the required 10 feet, a variance of approximately 3.34 feet. The history of this project is that in fall of 2025, city staff went out related to a concern by a resident regarding the property with the structure and its height and location. So myself and another member of the community development department went out there, did an initial assessment, and ultimately informed the property owner that we believe it qualified as an accessory structure, and asked the property owner to stop work at that time. The property owner has cooperated with staff to date. They have not conducted any further work on the structure since fall of 2025 due to our request. They, over the course of several months, elected to go through a zoning appeal process before the zoning board. The zoning board was the final decision body on that. That's why I did not go to city council. They upheld that it is an accessory structure and subject to the accessory structure setback requirements, opposed to it being considered play equipment underneath the zoning code. How that play equipment got into play is that the property owner did reach out to the city at some point, I believe in 2025, inquiring what the regulations were for play equipment, and went on a good faith effort down that route. There were no plans or further exchange of information provided at that time, but the property owner has represented that they believe what they were constructing was in alignment with that. So, they've proceeded under a misunderstanding between the code, and we are here today where they are seeking a variance from the zoning code to allow the structure to remain in place. Again, the structure has not been completed due to the request by Community Economic Development staff to allow for it to go through this process before finishing that structure. It's important to note that while a permit has been submitted for the structure, it has not been reviewed in full detail. The building commissioner has done a preliminary assessment of the permit and on site and found no immediate concerns associated with the structure, no imminent threat of it toppling or structural concerns. During his review, if there's additional needs for additional bracing or supporting, he will let the property owner know, but that is subject to approval by the Committee of the Whole and City Council. That is in alignment with how permits or variances typically go. We do not do reviews ahead of zoning approvals. The applicant is here tonight. I believe there are also members of the public that are also here tonight, but I am available for questions on this matter. The Plan Commission did recommend approval in a 5-0 vote.
The question I have, if the variances are approved, and I think you just stated this, that the review of the plans would ensure that it follows code for an accessory structure, and that so it would be inspected and approved. It would meet those codes, correct?
That is correct. And the property owner within the packet provided to the committee and the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals, there's highly detailed drawings that were included. Those were part of the permit submittal. So those were prepared by the applicant, who is a carpenter.
That was for the structure changes to the pedestals or posts that are going to be added to the design of it.
So at this time, there's 4 posts internal to that, and there's a small portion that is cantilevered. There is a photo, I believe, that was in the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Zoning Appeals packet that was taken by a staff member during that initial enforcement, where it does appear that there's some angling of it. Again, Jeff Albertson was out there just today, even again verifying that, and he found that it is not leaning or angling at this time. He, though, has informed me that if upon his review finds that a more permanent additional brace like a post is needed, that will be requested. Is my understanding that the property owner would be amenable to that as well.
So it would be required, basically, not just requested. To pass inspection, it's got to be required.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Fehrenbach?
Yeah, just a question on the structure. Having just gone through this with the deck, so now that we're calling it an accessory dwelling?
No, it's accessory structure. An accessory dwelling infers that it can be occupied.
Do they have to have posts down to the frost line like we do for everything else?
Jeff, I don't know if you want to answer that about, Alderman Farnbach had a question pertaining to the footings and the posts for supporting based on frost line.
It is, being an accessory structure, it is not required to have posts that go below the frost line. It will have to have supports as necessary to structurally support it. But it is, because it's not an occupied structure, it would not require frost line protection.
Excuse me.
Comments? Does the applicant have anything to say or any comments? No. I think as long as it meets, structural stability and has, to me, the additional posts that were listed in the one drawing that was there, I think it would be fine. Abby?
I think I did see a note in the memo about this, but in the future, will we be adding language to our code for folks that are Googling, searching our website for whether or not a treehouse needs to be permitted? I will confess to the applicant and everyone else here, I had the similar experience of starting a treehouse without a permit because I sit here every week and I'm pretty familiar with the website and all of our codes, and I didn't find anything, so I started without one too. And having code enforcement show up at my house was really embarrassing and really awful. And so, yes, I would hope that I didn't need a variance though, so I looked out there. But having that clarified and having some examples would surely save a lot of us a little bit of headache here in the future.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Abby. One thing I can note is I've added language to the department's website when regard play equipment, tree houses, or play structures to contact city staff regarding that. So there's initial language included, and for tree houses specifically, that directs them to planning and zoning staff to have that conversation. That is found on our permits page as some additional information on the website. In addition to that, the Planning Commission Zoning Board of Appeals has requested that staff look further into that to provide clarifications within the zoning code. I myself and Drew Reckow have started researching that. We foresee bringing that before the Planning Commission Zoning Board of Appeals for their initial review, either later in June or early October. The goal is to prevent this in the future.
Thank you.
Further, I look for a motion to approve ordinance 2026-33, variances on accessory structure setbacks at 1120 Essex Court.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Beck, second by Malay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next is 7.3, Resolution 2026-81R, approving a contract with Mead Incorporated to perform 15 kV underground circuit improvements in Woodland Hills.
Yeah, and as many people who live in that neighborhood know, there's a lot of, the electricity is overhead lines. And oftentimes, it's a very wooded area, Woodland Hills Road. It is woodlandy. And oftentimes, there will be branches of trees and other things that can cause problems with the overhead lines and some of the other issues regarding electricity being supplied, and it causes people to lose their electricity. So this is actually going to approve a contract to finally put everything underground in Woodland Hills, which is awesome. And on top of that, I believe we are getting a $1.17 million grant from the feds to assist us with this. So free money on top of it and putting it underground.
Yes, all correct. You can speak from experience, right? You had a nice light show in your backyard,
I just
over
had
the
one
holiday
that was
weekend, right?
On fire, yeah. It was
Yes,
great.
so we're going to try to mitigate a little bit of that. Yes, so anyway, thank you for that introduction, Alderman Solfa. And as you so clearly stated, we did receive a $1.17 million grant, part of the Illinois Finance Authority's Grid Resilience Grants Program. So we were very happy to be able to receive that and offset some of these costs. The bid amounts, as you can see there from our three successful or responsible bidders, did come in a little bit higher than what we had budgeted. So we had always intended for this project to span budget years from 2026 to 2027. And it looks like we just came up a little bit short in 2026 with what our estimates were when we were putting all of this together over a year ago. As you have read in the news, electricity is all the rage and everybody's doing stuff. So unfortunately, the contractors came in about 30% higher than what our estimate was. So we do intend to offset any additional expenditures occurred in 2026 with projects that we've already completed under budget, or defer additional CapEx and improvement projects to a different year later down the line that we could probably combine if things get going on Hubbard Road with reconstruction there. So we are pretty confident that we're not going to need a budget amendment to execute anything in 2026. Another thing that took us a little bit higher, we had $900,000 budgeted for material, but that is estimated at 1.2, and that is due to the Buy America, Build America requirement of the grant. So stuff made here in America does cost a little bit more, which is fine. We're happy to give that folks some jobs. And the other issue is that we have some lead time lengths increased. So we can get things from, Mexico, places like that, where some of the stuff is fabricated in 3 to 4 weeks, but some of the stuff that's in America, because everybody else is executing their grants too, is about 20 weeks out. So we're going to get started with this project sometime in November. We're going to work through the winter because it's directional boring. Our contractor, Mead, we've already started conversations with them as they are the low bid and responsible. They have some ideas on how we can do a lot of this with directional boring and not a lot of road cutting. So you're welcome, engineering. And fortunately, there's a lot of space in the right-of-ways there along that area. So we're pretty excited about that, and that also continues the work through the winter. And then once we do get started, we do anticipate a completion by the end of the year next year because there is just a lot to do. So we're just excited to get started on this project. Tony Fiorentino, who crafted this memo, has been working nonstop at securing over 36 easements. He's up to about 31. And so we're really, really happy that the residents have been supportive of this project as well. There's a few that have questions, which is understandable, and we just want to make sure their land is okay. Land is okay, fence is okay, flower bed's not going to get torn up, and they've been very good to work with. So compliments to the residents in Woodland Hills too. So if there are no additional questions, I leave it to you.
I think the residents in Ward 1 are awesome, and this is the oldest subdivision in Batavia, I do believe, so it is long overdue for us to put everything underground, safety, and for just the fact that it'll hopefully prevent, people calling about electrical outages because a tree fell on a line. So, anybody have any questions?
Second one, Chris has to say.
That Ward 1 is awesome. Yes. Yeah.
I'll just vouch from a professional perspective. The cost increases are no doubt there. That's to be expected in this market. Basically, if you need electricians, it's going to be expensive. So, but I think this is something that's expensive, but well worth it, especially with a $1.17 million grant. So, good work, everybody involved there.
If nobody else has any other questions, I would move to pass Resolution 2026-081-R, approving a contract with Mead Inc. to perform 15 kV underground circuit improvements in Woodland Hills.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Move on to Resolution 2026-84R, approving an agreement with Quad Plus Testing to perform preventative maintenance testing on City of Batavia's Paramount substation for the amount of $63,085.00. which includes 10% contingency amount.
And we do own and operate 5 distribution substations to serve our customers. This is basically to ensure that all of the substation equipment is always in good operating condition. So again, we don't have complaints of electrical outages if something goes wrong. So we test and maintain each of the 5 substations on 5-year intervals. So everything is tested every 5 years. And this is also going to identify, it's going to do the maintenance and identify possible failures so we can try to stay on top of things in terms of maintaining these. We did get a quote. It was $57,350 for this particular substation. And I believe it's going to start this fall. And the funds are budgeted because we budgeted 75 and this is less than 58,000. I don't know if you want to add anything, but it's pretty basic on that one.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward routine maintenance for the substation, and we always leave ourselves a little buffer in the budget there just in case there is an issue that's identified and we need to order a component and they need to come back once the component comes in or something like that. So we just leave ourselves a little leeway there.
We do have like 20,000 left over in the budgeted amount in case we need to buy a part or something in that regard. Anybody any questions? If not, then I would move that resolution 2026-084-R approving an agreement with Quad Plus Testing to perform preventative maintenance testing on City of Batavia's Paramount Substation for the amount of $63,085, which includes a 10% contingency amount, be passed.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And that's the conclusion of electrical discussions for the evening.
Yes, thank you very much.
And now we will get into downtown planter bed status. You want to start that off or?
Sure. Okay. Something that has been discussed both formally, briefly in this room, but then outside, just here around town, is the planter beds around, specifically in our historical downtown area. And so it was just something that we thought was worth a discussion tonight, both how they're maintained, how do we pick what's in the beds, what can we do to improve them in the future? Thank you. Just any outside feedback, from our environmental commission or others who might have opinions. I know downtown business owners feel probably very invested with this conversation also, and then other downtown entities. So yeah, that's just kind of how it got started, and just worth discussing more in detail. I mean, our downtown is just something we're talking more and more about improving and making it as welcoming as possible and, being visually attractive. And there is some comparison to some of our neighboring towns and what they're doing, and just trying to, make sure that we're looking nice also. So, yeah, thank you.
I'm going to add, Dave just dropped off. I had emailed you guys a few of the items prior to this discussion, but these are the planter bed locations, and they're colored red, city, green, volunteer. Then there's a list of plants that we have in the beds. Donetta McGrath has worked this year to identify all the plants in the bed, and unfortunately she's not able to be here to join us tonight, but then we also have the list of all the plants that were added, and they also have pictures and the planting specs for those in that. And then I know there was some concern about what Alderman Lehman just spoke about. So at the beginning of the season, we met with Main Street as well as Donetta and her landscape architect, Frank Lawrence, and talked about some of these items. They had prepared a list. We had been already engaged in working with Upland Design. So we had Upland look at the list that they provided us, Donetta and her group, and Upland provided us a list that kind of gave some popping colors and what might work best with what our existing characteristic is of the downtown. And then with that, Donetta has been working with Dave and his team, and they ordered 729 plants this year, and those majority of those were placed in our volunteer beds, which we have 20 of them. So you do the math, and if it's linear, it's about 36 plants per planting bed. Dave knows better. I'll give him the opportunity to speak too. And that was done for just under $3,500, and it was all done with the volunteers installing, and then our streets crew worked. And with Donetta to fix the irrigation, last year we were having some issues, so we were able to work through that this year and get the irrigation system up and running. And I know that they are taking off. And remember, this was, the look was to kind of be native. So the first year they sleep, the second year they're creeping, and then the third year they leap. So they're starting to fill in and take off, and slowly but surely we're getting there. But feel free if anybody has questions or if you have anything to add.
I'm not familiar with the background story on this. So I mean, obviously we're talking about it right now. Is the issue people just don't like the appearance? They don't like how quickly they're growing? Like I feel like there's a.
If I could, I think that there is a tension between the policy that was established to put native perennial plants in those beds, and you're just probably never going to get the continual color bloom that you're going to get if you use the hardy perennials that stand the test of time, and annuals planted in neighboring communities replant their flower beds 3 times during the year so that they can have what is in bloom for that particular season. So it is just the tension between those two things, and then also the patience to allow what has been planted to fully mature so that you can actually see what it looks like.
I have a lot of questions and a lot of comments, but I think the first one that I wanted to start with, what I don't hear necessarily, I just want to change the characteristic of the conversation a little bit. I get complaints about the look of the planters and the degree of probably maintenance that's going into them, and just want to shift away. The beds are maybe 60% natives. They are not all natives. There is some messiness to them. The messiness is not because of the natives. I don't want that to be, they are messy because they are natives. They are largely not native plants. There are a number of things in there that don't leap. The coral bells are as big as they're going to be. They're beautiful, and I love that they're incorporated. I don't remember the conversation about saying that they had to be exclusively natives, and I wouldn't support a conversation that said that they do have to be exclusively native. So I don't think that's where the tension is. I do think that maybe, to Jim's point, we need to kind of uncover what the underlying problem is here. And so what I actually wanted to start off with was, I'm sorry that Donetta wasn't here. I don't know if any of the other volunteers are here. Having a group of community members spearhead something like this, I think, is super admirable, and something that we should carve out time every season to get them here and say thank you, because that is a whole lot of work that they've put into organizing and getting all of these plants. And to your point, the thousands of dollars they've saved us in labor of putting them in the ground. So I think we really need to be celebrating and honoring those efforts. So hopefully that we have a chance to do that when they're here, or if anybody is here, this is me saying thank you so much for all of your dedication to our downtown. I do just think that we need to put some formalization behind the program and understand a little bit better what the maintenance schedule is, what the accountability is for the beds, that this is going to sound really harsh. How do we fire volunteers if they're not maintaining their beds as well as another bed? How do we further support staff? What does staff need in order to promote this program? Is it Is it, what is the finances behind it? What is the staff time behind it? Is it support from city council? Is it getting more volunteers? How do we advertise for more volunteers to take over more beds? I'm glad to hear that the watering was fixed. That was another one of my questions. And just kind of, an outline. And I'm wondering if there was ever an outline prepared. I know I asked this of Scott last year. What is the maintenance schedule? What is the watering schedule? What is the expectation for when things don't look good? What is the deadheading? How are we scheduling? How are we enforcing? How are we, and I know it's a brand new program, so if that needs to be still established, I'm just in full of support of getting staff, whatever we need to be building out a more robust program like our neighboring towns have.
Yeah, well, I mean, staffing wise, part of the problem with everything we do, we have someone that goes through downtown daily that drives it and looks for things that are here, there, whatever we can do to fix. And occasionally we'll spend, like last week, we probably did a big overhaul of probably like 3 straight days of 4 or 5 guys downtown, weed spraying, picking weeds out of the beds, going through everything, trying to clean it all up. But I mean, the biggest thing, you sure give me 3 more guys and I'll have someone down there all the time and everything will look beautiful and great. But I just don't have time and resources for that. That's kind of the biggest thing I have with it. Otherwise, watering schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, hanging baskets every day. We have 2 different main watering, I don't even know what the devices basically. One's up on the hill by the corner of the library at Water and Wilson. Other one is over here on Houston, which not completely fixed, still having trouble with it, but we are using our water truck to hand water every Monday, Wednesday, Friday there. I'm budgeting to get that replaced next year. So hopefully it works better. The system we have is a little bit older. Pieces are going, things are obsolete. I know some of the, I think just recently I ordered a bunch of pieces for the irrigation to kind of keep it going, and all of a sudden learned, hey, by the way, this is going out of stock. We have 10 left. And I'm like, cool, can I have them all? kind of thing, just so we can keep what we have going. So still working on improving that and making that better year to year. Otherwise, this year I know a lot of our own beds, we typically mulch every year. This year, a lot of them we did not mulch, because it was getting to the point where we're putting too much mulch on them and we're almost making a mound on it. So every time it rains, that just washes out in the street, creates more work for us to clean up. Hey, let's take a year off. So yes, it's not quite as pretty this year, but hey, let's take a year off, let that mulch kind of deteriorate away a little bit, and we'll do it again next year.
And then what is the maintenance schedule for volunteers? And what are the expectations when you adopt a bed?
Yeah, so Donetta is great. She's on top of everyone. She walks downtown probably 3-4 times a week looking at the beds. Anything she sees, she immediately texts them, lets them know. I mean, she's great, almost to a fault where I get annoyed with it a little bit because she's on top of me, but it's good because I'd rather have it that way because it keeps us on top of things, helps her keep on top of things. Anytime I see something that is a concern to me, she's just a text or email away and she responds right away. So it's kind of, some of the volunteers, yes, are better. They're on top of it. You never have to say a word to them. They take care of everything. The other ones, Donetta has to give a push every now and then and say like, hey, this is lacking a little bit. Can you please go down there and take care of this?
And then if it's not done, is there a process for what happens next?
If someone is not doing well enough, I know she does it. Like we have 2 or 3 new volunteers this year. Usually she's pretty firm. She loves what she does, but she does a good job of weeding things out if it's not too good.
Yeah, thank you. If I could just give a little input from a volunteer from a plant out there. There's one person within our group that communicates with Donata. And so it kind of filters down. From the group that I belong to, we have picked a shift every week. But to your point, I ask, like, what should I be doing this week? Like a little bit of that direction for the group overall, I think would be really beneficial to some of the groups that not everybody is a gardener, but they want to do good things for it. You get a lot of positive feedback from that. So if that's something that we could look at maybe doing, is asking her to put together a schedule of saying, hey, this is what's currently out right now. Please pass this along to whoever's taking care of your bed this week. I think that would be one thing that would be beneficial. But again, for us, for our group, we've rotated. And so I don't know if maybe, she could ask for a rotating schedule or something from the different groups. Or if they just have like 1 or 2 people that do that. So just a little bit of feedback from an organization. But then also sometimes we have to remember when you put a plan in there, sometimes it doesn't always make it. And so it does have to, it does have to get replanted, or it looks bad going in, but then it's going to come back the next year.
Yeah, and I know we struggle with Houston Street a lot because there's a lot of festivals, events, everything. I mean, we just had Windmill City Fest down there. It's impossible for us to police the beds 24/7 and keep everyone off of it. People walk through it. Houston Street's our biggest problem because people are constantly walking through them. So it's like if we needed somehow to keep them off of them for 3 years, plants will be good. Hey, now they can withstand a little bit of harsh physical environment.
A few questions and comments. So I think from what I've been gathering from the community, there's almost three different discussions that we're, I think, trying to include here. So one are these beds that we're talking about, both the city kept ones and the volunteer ones that are marked in this map. But then also, like, I had photos sent to me of trees on Wilson, kind of like in front of Beards Guard and New Moon Vegan, that,
Batavia Avenue, you mean?
What was that?
Do you mean Batavia Avenue?
Yes, that is what I meant. Yes, Batavia Avenue, thank you. Where the trees are planted, there's just nothing really kept in there. It's just like a lot of weeds or dirt or whatever. So, do we have a plan for those in the future? And who's maintaining those? And then also just all the big pots, which honestly, those I think look pretty nice around town. All of our large planter pots look very lovely for the most part. So it's kind of like, it's a lot. You have a very large project to upkeep all of this. I totally recognize that. But if we're going to have these spaces in town, we need to come up with a long-term plan, even if it's not going to happen this summer. But just what are we going to do with these spaces throughout town? And then my other question was, how is it determined what is a city kept bed and a volunteer kept bed?
As far as I know, I think it's just based on volunteers that Danetta got, and it was kind of just a plan that was put in place. This was before I took over, so I'm not 100% sure. But as far as I know, it was kind of like, hey, these beds need attention. Danetta stepped up, was willing to get volunteers together, and it was just kind of like from there, okay, these beds are volunteer beds, go at them.
And like for your department, are you happy with which beds are volunteer beds and which ones are city beds? Do you wish you had more visibility? Like the ones in town that had more visibility, do you wish you had more control over those? Like, is there a way that maybe volunteer beds could be more ones that aren't in the main area or have the most visibility?
That's a great question. That's something we could look at in the future. Honestly, I love the volunteers. They take a tremendous load off of my back. So the more of them, the better. If they're willing to take over more beds, I'm personally happy with it. It's just makes it easier for us, quite honestly, just because resource-wise, it saves us a boatload of time.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Leo was saying in terms of the conversation extending not only to Batavia Avenue, but then to River Street as well. And the email that we got from Beth, and I know I've had pictures sent to me as well of how we have some beautiful planters in town, and we've got the big round ones that are gorgeous. And then on River Street, which is like our street, like our big programmed, beautiful street, and the beds are empty or just have weeds in them. So that just seems a little mismatched too. And then another component to add to it or add to another discussion is then code enforcement on privately owned beds as well, which can also sometimes look a little underwhelming in our downtown or messy or unkept. So if we're looking at the full package, I know that there's a lot of different pieces going on there as well.
I know River Street, definitely the planter beds are lacking, but that's also because we had some massive irrigation issues there. That's why we kind of dug out those 2 trees and then had to replace them because that was fun digging through roots to try to find water lines with leaks. But so that got fixed this year. And now that that's fixed, that's definitely on the plan for next year to add some more plants down there. But we didn't want to add any plants down there because they weren't getting any water. So it's kind of like, what are we going to do? Add plants and just let them die off? That's kind of a waste of money and resources. So took the time, fixed the water leaks. Next year we can plant more plants.
And historically, we've had a very hard time growing plants in some of the planters where there are numerous events on the street with a lot of people around. They get trampled and kind of garbage thrown in them too. So, but that's probably another enforcement issue that we can try with the business owner.
As well as allowing pets on the street. I know there are some residents there, but they're with our great street. There is no grass for dogs to go potty. So dogs are in the bushes or underneath the trees, and, you know, it does not help the plants. And I was out at the market, and Donetta had walked up and she was noticing it as well. And she's like, it's just so hard. People don't respect the space because it's so tight, and the market has so many people, which is great. But then they're just trying to get around and scoot, and they're like, oh, I'll just hop over this planter. And so again, it's hard. We did have a conversation with Donetta a little bit about that. And the only thing that we came up with was doing like those little fences. If, you know, you go downtown Chicago, you see on Michigan Avenue, they have the big fences around some of their planting areas, but, you know, here you could look at decorative things. So that is something we can look at if you guys think that might be something. We're in budget season right now, so we can definitely add those things as well.
Just a minor observation, suggestion, just because I'm sure that is an issue with dogs and people and everybody traveling. I haven't been down to River Street in 2 weeks, but last time I was there, I did notice a lot of the just concrete kind of curb beds just were like just the plain dirt and weeds. Even if those were just mulched and left plain, like that would even be an economical, no maintenance, just nicer look for down there for when people are walking around, until you can come up with a budget for fencing or flowers or, you know, a different maintenance capacity.
And I know that downtown was pretty weedy. We just last week went through and kind of went overboard cleaning everything up too.
Cool. Fehrenbach?
You know, thanks for raising this as an issue. I didn't realize we had so many beds downtown. We have a lot. And a little bit of an indecent proposal. Should we even be doing this? I mean, should we be bidding this out to a private company to do? I mean, what are other communities doing? Because I'm hearing a couple of things. Number one, I'm hearing it sounds like the volunteers are having a lot of angst going on based on what I've heard of this conversation-wise, right? Yeah. And it sounds like it's impacting you as staff. So the question is, how are other communities doing it? Are they just putting this out to bid? Because having a single throat to choke has a lot of value when you get down to it.
I mean, I guess we could possibly throw it out to bid and just have all the beds taken care of, and then we could probably do whatever we wanted, but that's also going to raise costs a lot.
Do we know how other communities are doing it?
I do not. I haven't asked anyone to reach out in that manner. I mean, I think we have a good balance. I like the native plants because it's less maintenance, especially if they can get to that year 3, then they're pretty much just let them be because they'll thrive. And we also have the mix of all the hanging basket, the planter, the big round planters that are all different types of flowers that are annuals that we replace every single year, and we water those. So personally, I think it's a good mix, but.
And if you want to see a mature bed like that, if you go to the back of the Paramount on Stolt Avenue, Aurora has some really beautiful mature beds back there that are really full of color.
I think a lot of communities around us have similar things that we have, where they'll have, even some of them have little plaques of, you know, this is by this group or that group that takes care of the beds on the bridge or in a certain area in town. And I think that's something that, we should take advantage of that when we can, because again, it's free labor. And when people start to do stuff like that, they take pride in what's there. So they will come back and come in and weed it and make sure that it stays in good shape.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little BASF here. I think everyone has some great ideas there. The plaque thing hit me too, but I was thinking of, under construction, coming soon, like just so that there's some sort of awareness, like, and we can make them nice. We make nice little signs for other things. And, I'm kind of with Jim, where that's where my head was going initially, was like, wait a minute, others, are probably paying a service to get them done 3 times a year. And that's why, they look the way they do. And I'm not necessarily proposing that, but maybe, there is some sort of happy medium there where, we only have maybe the city run beds and put that out to bid or something like that, just to get, or if, we can do some research and get some ballpark numbers, like, no, that's completely out of control. It's whatever it might be. But I would be interested to see that. But really what I'm hearing mainly is just maybe a little lack of direction. I mean, to Jen's point, and I think if that direction, that kind of overarching direction, that probably needs to get a little more myopic from the city level, might help tremendously. Again, resources, but like you're saying, this might, if we hire someone, it might cost money. But you're saying 2-3 more humans would also get it done and also cost a lot of money. So, yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of things to discuss there, but I think there's room for massive improvement here. I think the program started out with the greatest intentions in the world and still has it. It's just execution is hard when there's not a lot of direct, like, okay, this needs to be done by this time. And I don't want to say there's consequences if it doesn't, but you know what I mean? Some sort of program, some sort of more direction.
Other plans that we've had, when we come up for a downtown master plan or whatever plan it might be, you want to kind of set deliverables to that and, dates to that and expectations, and then go back and look at, okay, did this provide what we wanted? Is it the right way to do it? And, what are our options if we don't like what's happening?
It might be easier to recruit volunteers that way. Listen, here's your set schedule when you're going, rather than the willy-nilly text message, which I'm sure was the easiest way to start it out. But now it's kind of getting, and that's how Jen's group does it. I don't know how all the groups do it, but it's an example and probably a good one.
Oops, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
One of the things, talking about deliverables, I did ask Danetta, because there wasn't really a plan of what plants were out there. So I asked if she could provide that. So I do have the list of the plants in there, and she said, not all of them have bloomed, so I can't really tell. And so that's the thing. Now we know what's in there. So the plan is a work in progress. If you look through the list that Dave provided with all the different plants, it tells you when they bloom and their prime time. So you can go through that. And the volunteers, I will say, knowing that the guys that work on this in the streets division, I only know Danetta from the volunteer side. I think that's their passion. Everybody that is involved with that really likes doing that, or like Alderman Barron said, wants to learn about it. Nothing against street guys, they're great, but I don't know if that's all their passion, that, they want to learn about native plants or stuff like that. Some may have green thumbs, but I think the volunteers are an amazing asset. And so we are working on the deliverables. My goal is to eventually then know each bed, what's in there and where, and we can kind of start working on that, but without knowing what was in there, we at least had to have a starting point.
I was going to suggest, piggybacking on your the idea of placards, could there even be a competition element to it? Like, having a bed assigned to different volunteers and kind of giving them a bit of stewardship over that with guidelines, and obviously a lot of direction by Danetta and staff on what can be planted there and things. But to kind of develop a stewardship mentality for those using competition framework, and that include different things like best use of native plants, best overall aesthetic, most consistent maintenance, things like that, as a way to sort of naturally encourage maintenance of these areas. That was my first comment. My second comment do you feel that there would be any benefit from a somewhat more formalized arrangement? I've been kind of batting around the idea a bit now to maybe resurrect the tree commission into a general landscaping commission, for instance, that could help provide more direct feedback and specific planning on maintaining these beds. But I'd be very curious to see how staff would feel specifically about such an arrangement, and if you feel that'd be beneficial, or if we want to continue the current arrangement, maybe just with more direction.
I mean, I'm open for all suggestions. I mean, I'm not opposed to anything. But right now, honestly, it probably does need a little bit more direction. But outside of that, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be opposed as a commission overseeing things and helping out.
Would that be helpful, do you feel? Yeah, it's just an operational thing. It could just be more meetings too. So, yeah, but just more meetings not helping.
I know engineering education committee that is appointed by the city that I believe oversees the organization and the structure of their garden beds. I thought of a competition too. I just kind of wondered, it is so new. I mean, we're all just kind of figuring it out on the fly and building the plane as we're flying it. So I thought about the competition as well, because I wondered how many people even know that those are volunteer beds. How many people even recognize or know which beds are which, and just to
plaques on them.
They do. I know they do, but like, if you're not walking by, you don't know. If you're driving by, you don't know that they're only there. So just to give that a little bit more attention, because again, I want to give them recognition for the work that they're doing, and maybe that would spur more people to volunteer and say, I'll take a bed.
I will say, when we had the smoke for that week, that was a very difficult week for people to get out. So that may have contributed to some of the weediness in the last couple of weeks.
There's placards on the beds. Is there a map? I know you got a numbered map here, but
Yeah, the map that's numbered, and if you look at
it's
the,
who's doing which. I see.
it's the brute, it's a kind of brief there, but like number 2, like Bocaditos.
But the
I
point
know
is
they
that
oversee
available anywhere? Can we have that on the website, or have that so
We can make a GIS map, and, you know,
exactly.
you could see who.
What I'm getting at, like the wayfinding that we've had around time, and the historical marker stuff that we have, if there's, included in that electronic map or GIS, maybe that's can create a little bit of that accountability to different groups, and can be a challenge. Who's volunteering and go check out their work.
Right. Yep, definitely something we can do.
I'm just curious, there might be people in the public who want to speak on this. Who might be here?
About this.
Hi, my name's Garrett. I own and operate Farm Dog Flowers up on Wilson Street. We are right outside, or I guess one of the beds is right outside of our storefront. And I think I'm definitely one of the community members who has reached out regarding this issue because it is prevalent. And with those, especially those 2 beds at the corner of Wilson and Route 31 or Batavia Avenue, those are really a gateway into our community. And within the last, I've grown up in the Tri-Cities. I've had a business here for now about 5 years. And so, I personally, just in the time that I've had a business here, have seen significant investment in the community from both business owners, residents, the city itself, which is great. But when I see these beds that look the way they do right now, and frankly put, they do not look good. They are weedy. They are not well designed. It's disappointing because that reflects on us as a city. It reflects on us as business owners. It reflects on us as a community, especially when what we have is such a strong foundation and it's only getting stronger. And so, I have a lot of questions that I've spelled out in emails and all that kind of things. And I won't beat a dead horse in that regard, but I think just knowing that we as business owners, I know I'm not alone. I might be the only one here tonight, but we are watching, we are looking. I have customers that come in and ask why there are weeds in the beds out front. And I don't have an answer to them. I say, email the city, because we have as well. I do know that resources, staffing, all of that is limited, and that's hard to get good help. I own a business, I get it. So, but there also has to be, and I know there's been discussion tonight about it, oversight of volunteer work. Certain things just shouldn't be volunteer work. Maybe certain things can be outsourced to professionals who specialize in this kind of thing, whether it's municipal landscape or just successful landscape design, period, working with natives, which can absolutely be used and integrated into municipal plantings in an effective way, but there's a right and a wrong way to do it. I'm not going to claim to be a professional. It's not what I do in that regard, but I know it can be done. And I guess as a business owner, I want to know, not tonight, but I guess following through, or not necessarily tonight, what are the benchmarks? Who is overseeing the design of the beds? Because I know that there's been, whatever the count was, 3,000 plus plants put in, or however many this year. I do understand that they're not going to look amazing the first year or the second year, but who's designing the beds? I know firsthand, I see Danetta out there pointing and shooting. What's Danetta's background? I do know she popped into the store several years ago and asked us what we thought about them and gave her an honest opinion. And I don't know how she got involved. I'm not going to ask that, but, is she the authority to be designing these beds? Who is designing these beds? These have not been answered. Questions have not been answered to me as a business owner who has emailed concerns regarding this, because it does reflect on my business, other businesses, hearing about trees on Batavia Avenue in front of Beards Guard and New Moon. That's equally as important because that's what people driving through our main thoroughfares see. And just driving away from the shop today, I see weeds in the beds that are this tall. I see irrigation lines that are not buried. I see runoff of mulch down my sidewalk that I have to hose off every time it rains. When those beds need to be regraded, dirt pulled out because they have been overloaded. So there has to be oversight to the education of workers, volunteers, and kind of a reset on priority. So I don't know, just some comment. So.
Hello, my name is Alex Ellis. I'm representing the Environmental Commission tonight. I was not planning to say anything. I just kind of came to listen to the discussion, but through listening to all of you discuss this, I just had a few thoughts that I figured I would just share right now, just kind of food for thought to maybe spur additional discussion, whether that's tonight or later. So I know we have expressed interest in being part of the downtown planter discussions and planning, and to date that hasn't really happened. I know we provided our recommendations to our thoughts about, was it Upland Design? Upland Design's plant palette. I don't think we got a response back on that, but that is something that I guess I would request, and we'll talk to city staff about, to also be involved in some of those discussions. Look at my notes here. I think it seems like part of the larger discussion is, what do we want the cohesive look of downtown to be? I don't know if I personally see that when I look at our downtown and the Riverwalk, like you said, between Batavia Avenue, Wilson Street, River Street. There's a lot of different plantings, some beds that aren't planted, and then you have the Riverwalk, which is very natural. And we would personally love to see that natural look extend into downtown. To me, that's a cohesive look, especially because the river runs through downtown. Yeah, I think generally I agree with a lot of what you all are discussing, the points that you're bringing up. I wonder if it would be beneficial to have somebody mentioned kind of like a working group or committee with all of the various stakeholders. Everybody's going to have a different opinion of what they want to see. So all of you on council, the businesses, city staff, the Environmental Commission, businesses, the public, and making sure we're all happy at the end of the day, which may not happen, but some compromise, and again, just trying to go for a cohesive look that everybody likes, to just make our city more beautiful. But yeah, I think that's it for now. Sorry, it's not a very cohesive thought. I kind of popcorned, but yeah, I think, Andrea, I would request if we can get copies of the maps and that plant list that you have when you got a chance, but thank you.
Just before you go again, it kind of sounds like from what everybody's saying that perhaps it already almost being August, we'll do the best we can to get through this year, but this really sounds like a winter planning project for next year, and starting with determining who all are stakeholders in this process, because it sounds like there's different stakeholders and some communicate with each other and some don't, some officially, some kind of off, unofficially. So it might be nice to pull all the stakeholders together, have a cohesive design, and figure out how that's going to be implemented and maintained.
You just stole almost all the thoughts in my head. So that has probably been our biggest problem this year, just on a staff perspective, is both Dave and I came into this still learning a lot and trying to figure out everything, and hearing this group say this group say that, pointing fingers and trying. We've been mediators, and I know there's a lot of people that want lots of different things. And as Alex said, we're not going to make everyone happy. We can do whatever the 14 of you guys want us to do, in what direction. It's just been we've had some battles to deal with, the irrigation and then getting the plants to take. If you guys want to go with us getting quotes to see about next year having a plan, we would just need to budget for that and kind of get some rough ideas. We can reach out to some of our neighboring communities to get ideas so we can throw that line item in the budget, which are due very soon, for at least our internal review. But if you want us to have a group and have some sort of commission, we can start that. But again, one of the big things, and I think Garrett mentioned, is priorities. And we have lots of things that we're juggling. When we have storms, and I am so thankful that there were not storms here, because I was dealing with it at home, damage this week, that they are not coming down here and cleaning up the downtown. They are all over cleaning up everything else, making sure our detention ponds are not clogged and that the sewers are flowing. That is what our street division does. That is their first and foremost job, keeping the public safe and being able to get here and there, as well as allowing our other first responders to be able to do that. So at times that gets shifted, but knowing what you guys would like, I think would help us, and then we can work on a plan ourselves to get the goals and stuff that you guys want to see.
Kind of what I'm hearing from everybody that may be a good route for us to go is to actually hire somebody that's an expert in this, to take a look at what our beds are and what we currently have in there. And then with the working group this winter, come up with a plan of what needs to be plugged in and into some of the other beds, and then go from there. Because we do have some stuff that is good and some stuff that needs to come out and some stuff that needs to be regraded. But maybe at this point, nobody's come through and has said, I'm an expert on this. And so maybe now it's the time, if this is the route that we want to go, to look at bringing an expert in to tell us where we need to plug things in. And that's where the volunteers will be very beneficial, because if they're told, put this plant here, put this plant here, that is something that they'll like to do. I can tell you, we weren't given a map on where to put our plants. We were just told to dig it and put it in. And I'm like, okay. So I think at this point, salvage some of what we have, but it's time for us to get an expert in here to really design and be able to see all of the beds and say, this is how we're going to make it cohesive. And then we can go from there.
That's news to me because I would have thought that you would have at least been instructed to do them in clumps of 3 or whatnot in the beds. But yeah, definitely we'll continue working on this plan, and as they bloom, try and get identification of which ones are in those locations. And then we can budget for January to have a consultant take a look at this with us, and maybe between now and then figure out some stakeholders that want to be involved. And it'd be great if somebody on the council maybe has some input too. And I don't know when we can meet, but it'd be great to have somebody from you guys to support us.
Actually, I like that plan a lot because it covers the ability to create a plan, but it would still allow maintenance through the volunteer system. And in doing so, it's not a long-term liability. It's instead just getting things organized. So I think that would be one of the most effective options.
You would still want the volunteers, though, for the following summer for the ongoing.
Yeah, because they can be given a plat of where the plants need to go, and you can be like, dig here and go.
Yeah.
I worked with somebody on the environmental commission in our back, and she had a plan out of what plants went where, and they were spaced out based on when they were going to bloom and the color and everything. So it can be done, and you can have things successionally bloom. If that's the right word to do it, but it can be done, but you have to have the right person that has the patience and time, and just being a willy-nilly gardener. If you look at my yard, I'm the wild place, but that's me.
Okay, so then we'll plan to have a consultant work on that, and then have volunteers, so we don't need to budget anything additional for like a professional landscaper to come in. That at least gives us direction.
And we can try that out for a while and see how that goes.
Yeah.
One more comment about another component to this really does seem to be maintenance. And so I know the idea with planting the natives is over the years, they'll need less and less maintenance, but they still do need, I just think it's something that needs to be considered as an additional piece other than the design plan is the long-term maintenance. Given everything that you said, given how you guys are stretched and how you do have to prioritize public safety needs over beautification projects, completely understandably, and we wouldn't expect anything different than that. But that sounds like it might need to be a budgeted component in addition to that really needs to be considered.
Yeah, I mean, when you do a quick survey here, like if we look at like Roselle, Oak Park, Park Forest, Buffalo Grove, Lincolnshire, Tinley Park, goes on and on. These are communities which have outsourced the maintenance of their downtown beds. So just it is as well.
We could also try and see with what the plants are with the planting plan, and the consultant, if they can provide us just a basic one, we can try it out for a year. If that doesn't work, then we can up our game again. Or we can always start out with that maintenance plan that would not be volunteers. And then the only thing is, I don't know what the volunteers would be doing if we don't need planting, then they're being outsourced. And we'd have to have that discussion.
It's easier than planting.
And so the majority of this discussion has been on, these planters that are on this map. But coming back to River Street and Batavia Avenue and the other areas that need some help, like is this something you need additional resources, for weeding and just upkeep of those? Or is that just something that, we're still in this in between?
A little bit of both. I mean, I do know, like 31 today, I know I drove by today and was like, eesh. And so that was in the back of my head, and I did say something to my crew leaders about it, so I know it's on our plan to get out there and weed those too. But yeah, I mean, every time there's a storm, something, I mean, I know the last week we really haven't been downtown.
So is that something that we should also consider budgeting, is outsourcing just somebody to come in and weed and maintain these other beds, like up and down our downtown area? Again, I'm not sure if it's more worth adding people to your department or outsourcing? I can't speak to that, but.
Quick question. So when we say adding people, I think we all think full-time. I remember doing seasonal work for the park district as a kid.
Same.
Is that something that is optional?
Yeah, we do have a seasonal employee that does help us out with what he can. I mean, part of that too, though, is that we have all the trees that we planted. We probably have a couple hundred trees with gator bags on them that we go out and water weekly. And it's kind of easiest for us to say, instead of wasting one of our seasoned employees on just putting a hose in a bag and filling it with water, hey, here you go, seasonal help. Thank you very much. You're doing something great for us that is allowing us to use our resources in a better place. So, yeah, I mean, we do use seasonal help. And I also know every year we put it out, we get very few applicants to put in for it. Yeah.
Both the park district and us have both had that problem that we have a really hard time finding seasonal help.
And I know with all the parkway remediation, with all the sod, all the seasonal help's been watering that, or you'd have residents complaining that the sod's dead.
That's the contractor who's doing that at union wages. Yeah.
They do a lot. They're always watering the sod.
Yes. Especially as hot as it's been.
Yeah.
I got a door hanger myself because I've got some sod in front, and they told you how to take care of the sod. But because it was so hot, we didn't want to see all of that hard work go brown.
They definitely worked hard on that.
They sure did.
I know we're not like settled on an exact plan, and I'm just excited for the winter time and planning for what this could look like. Cause I'm still thinking about a beautification committee or is it tree and landscaping committee or something formalized. And even if we do go with a maintenance plan to get these beds established professionally, I'm trying to also not think so narrowly, like what else would a beautification committee be able to see and do and recommend and fundraise for and educate the public or do outreach for us that, takes some stress off of staff's plate to go do the other more critical things. Yeah, I just don't want to lose sight of the volunteers and the assets that we have in our community that would be willing to help in ways that we might not even be thinking of for our town.
I'll just make a last comment that, I think, I think this is actually a bigger topic than we're thinking because, I kind of said it out loud earlier, but it's very true. I think the town is growing up a little bit. I don't think previous councils, this town previously did a lot of thinking around beautification. It was Wild Wild West over here for a little bit. And now, we're playing a little bit of catch up. We have some, neighbors that are ahead of the game. So, it's okay to compare ourselves to them on a lot of fronts. I think, we got to give ourselves some grace on a lot of fronts as well. And just kind of know where we're at in reality. But I do think this should have a lot of attention. I'm kind of with Abby on this. I think there should probably be a committee of some sort. And I think those stakeholders can come from a number of places, whether that be historic preservation, city council, staff, environmental commission, everybody can kind of have a stake in that a little bit on what does beautification look like to you downtown. We've already started a lot of it with a lot of the artwork and things like that, which, are, to us is beautification, right? So, but I think we are like literally just scratching the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what can be done with this downtown area. All of us know that. We're all eager to get there, I think. I think, a couple more facts in terms of what does that look like from a cost perspective, right? How do we ease up I can hear it. I can feel it that there is some tension there. It's like, dude, we don't want to be working on flower beds all day. Like, this isn't what we're good at. Let us go do what we're good at. So, we got good people that work for us. We want them doing what they're best at. So, weeding is not that. I'll come weed, but even that, just pushing out the awareness of, that volunteer program. Cause I think all of it can be layered, right? We can still have our volunteers and also pay a company. We can pay a company maybe less, right? Just like a cleaning crew that comes to your office or house or whatever. No, I only need you 2 days a week rather than the 5. That's obviously usually less, right? So I'd love to see options there, because I think there is an element where we need that throat to choke in your sense, like, wait a minute, this is the way they were supposed to look. It wasn't executed properly. Yeah, maintenance, weeding, whatever. Well, we can deal with that, but there's some other things where I think we need that throat to choke and leadership and vision and all that. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to discuss there. Maybe a retreat item. I didn't think I was going to say it.
We could read on the retreat.
Yeah. Although I might not be.
Come on up.
Use the microphone.
Hello again, it's Dawn. And this is a little baby tiger lily plant that I grew from a root. This is a native plant, native to Kane County. I'm a native plant. I grew up on a farm at the intersection of Kane and McHenry and DeKalb counties down in the Coon Creek basin there on a gravel road. And as I mentioned, I'm of Illinois pioneer stock. My great-grandfather created a beautiful botany collection that I inherited. And so I'm very familiar with what used to be here. The Fox River was part of my stomping grounds too. This whole area, when you're of pioneer stock, you tend to think in terms of regions and not just your little plot of land that your house sits on. I think from my experience that a lot of folks have a limited perception of what constitutes a native plant, and there is a huge variety of plants out there that I think a lot of folks aren't even aware of. And I have spent many years gardening, and I just I roll gardens over so that you plant them in such a way so that something new and exciting is always coming up. There are ways to do it, and there are ways to get help, such as recruiting your local 4-H club, or talking to the U of I extension for your area, the Master Gardeners. The Northern Illinois University has a lovely biology program that they have folks there that study native plants. I study them for the physics of plants and the interesting things that I learn about them. I was deeply sad today when I walked past the Walmart to see that the Walmart, some of the Walmart grounds workers that had been asked to come in to remove weeds because they were getting complaints of weeds, and that they had to remove the milkweed, which was just recently visited by the butterflies, which the monarch butterfly caterpillars' eggs are hosted on the monarch, or on the milkweed plant. The Queen Anne's lace was taken down, which is the host plant for the caterpillars of the black-tail swallowtail, the black swallowtail butterfly caterpillar. And so I realize that businesses have it often in their minds that things have to look like they came out of Home Depot or Menards or something like that to qualify as beautiful. I, however, being a native plant myself, am sad when those plants disappear that are thought as weeds that I know are actually very valuable in many ways. So I think education of the community is important. And what I've thought about the teaching the residents around Brayburn Marsh, for example, who get frustrated by the weeds. A lot of that is because they don't know the difference between a native plant and a non-native plant, an invasive plant, and there needs to be some education and to learn how to appreciate our native flora here. So I would be happy to assist the city, just with my experience and my knowledge of the resources in the area where you can find pools of volunteers, and some of them very, very knowledgeable. The Walmart workers could not tell me the difference between a native plant and a non-native plant, and didn't know what a milkweed was and didn't recognize the importance. So these valuable native plants are coming down, but the invasive teasel in back of Walmart still stands, ready to take over your marsh and cost all kinds of money when it starts to snarl up the drainage with their roots. So I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 7.6, which is a discussion on residential subdivision signs. Talk about this. Besides Drew. Go ahead.
Go ahead, okay.
The floor is all yours. You got 7 minutes.
It was asked if we put this on the committee as a discussion item, but there had been a request for particularly the Ritter Farm subdivision looking to put a subdivision identification sign. But then there was the request to kind of also broadly talk about those the requirements we have within the zoning code, which, as I outlined in the memo, come from kind of a history of decisions that were made by the past councils, which then filtered into the comprehensive plan update in 2008, which then resulted in the adoption of within the zoning code some sign standards for limitations for single-family subdivision signs, as well as some basic allowances just for multifamily. I outlined a number of kind of that history and background with regard to the request with Ritter. The property is part of a plan development, so there is some opportunity within, as I outlined in the memo, to address that particular development. But from a perspective of staff, I think we feel that there was a lot of work that went into putting that item within the comprehensive plan. To amend the comprehensive plan, just to remove that is a task that would take some time to complete, as well as with regard to if the council felt that you wanted to have allowances within the zoning code for single-family properties, that would also take time to amend that within the zoning code through the formal public hearing process and council review and approval. So that's where this particular situation could potentially be addressed within the plan development, but we also want to provide that generalized history for the discussion with the committee tonight.
So Tim and I were approached by the Ritter Farm subdivision. Obviously, it's in our ward. And a lot of the questions they got were, if you drive down Hart, driving south on Hart, literally you see at least 6 or 7 subdivision signs. If you're driving south, literally the 2 subdivisions right before them have signs on both sides of Hart Drive. So when they were told they can't have a sign, that kind of spurred the conversation. That's where this came up. I hear what staff is saying about the process that it would take to get really the zoning code addressed. I mean, I wasn't here obviously in 2008, so I think subdivision signs, the whole one Batavia thought process. I mean, we even heard today we're talking about, hey, we're in Woodland Hills, we're in all these places, so love Woodland Hills, so it's a great place. But I think it's more of a geographical marking still. It's not a, hey, I live in this neighborhood, it's better than that neighborhood. So I don't have an issue with the subdivision sign. It sounds like there's an opportunity to do within the plan development. So I'd be okay with that too. But to me, if someone wants to pay for a subdivision sign, and they show the opportunity a way to maintain it, and it's within our, signage sign ordinances with size and everything, I don't have a problem with that. I think they should be able to do that.
Yeah, Woodland, I was just thinking about this. I just got done promoting an ordinance that was in the own staff memo calling it the Woodland Hills neighborhood, which is the neighborhood I've lived in for over 20 years and the neighborhood I've known for, almost the entirety that I lived in Batavia. Because like I said, it was the first subdivision. The sign at the front of the subdivision is my neighbors across the street, and it's on their property, to my knowledge, and they take care of it. They maintain it. They make it look real nice. My thought is, as long as the city's not paying for it, if some private property owner at the corner of the subdivision wants to put the sign in for their subdivision, what harm is it doing? I really don't see any harm to it. Especially because, just like Alderman Anderson just said, I think I wasn't here when this was all discussed, but I don't think this one Batavia thing holds any water in my view, in terms of people thinking that they're not from Batavia because they live in a named subdivision. It's just easier to say where you live. I live in Woodland Hills. I live in Batavia, but if you're talking to a Batavia person, you say, all right, you're talking to somebody out of town. Yeah, I'm from Batavia. You're talking to somebody in Batavia. Yeah, I'm over in Woodland Hills, that's just the way you identify things. It's like neighborhoods in Chicago. If you're visiting like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where are you from? I'm from Chicago. You're in Chicago, you're like, where are you from? Well, I'm from Lakeview. Well, what part of Lakeview then? Because it's divided into different parts now, So I just don't see this as an issue. I think it's kind of been overblown. I think that as long as the city's not paying for it and somebody else is maintaining it on their own private property, go for it.
Yeah, I kind of had the same visceral reaction, so I'll keep it short because a lot of my comments are very similar, but the cat's kind of out of the bag. Alderman Anderson mentioned it, and I was actually astonished when I found out there was an ordinance because I see signs all over the place. So, and especially one that's right outside my neighborhood, the Knolls, and it's a very nice sign with very nice homes in there, right? So it's like, I don't think that was built in 1994. I think that was post 94, but I could be wrong. So I am 100% in agreement with Alderman Solfa that I think there's good intention there in that conversation and people bringing that up and wanting to not have this exclusivity. I think it's a little blown out of proportion, and I don't think, it's right to tell folks, again, if they want to pay for it and maintain it, again, and within ordinance, within the size and scope of what we say or we deem is respectable. Again, cat's kind of out of the bag. We can't tell them no if their neighbors and the other neighbors and the other neighbors all have signs, so.
Alderman Fehrenbach?
Yeah, I feel like, to Tim's point made earlier, I feel like we're just about built out. How many acres we have left that are empty? Is it even 200 yet? I'm asking.
Well, I guess it depends on what you're including in it, but
right. So I feel like we're going to spend a lot of time talking about something that is going to be a moot point in about a year, right, or a year or two. So when it comes to the existing signs, it's already done. And as far as as long as they're being maintained, who cares? And when it comes to the new subdivisions, if the few we have remaining, the few options we have, I think it's a little too late to say you can't have a sign because it's been allowed. My only concern is that, believe it or not, I live in a subdivision. I didn't even know it. I looked at my assessor's statement. I'm like, I live in a subdivision, right? I don't have a sign. Right. So I think part of the concern might be people thinking, are they going to retroactively put a sign here where there wasn't one? Right. So I think as long as we have the stipulation that, hey, this is a moving forward thing or an existing thing rather than a potential for modification of an existing area, I think it's fine.
I think in terms of, the prohibition, when it was introduced, like I said in the memo, it was an informal policy. I think that some of them, it was more enforced probably on certain properties or at certain times more than others. I think the thought from a staff's perspective also is, the regulation as it's in place now kind of limits the, some of those, potential of, subdivision, adding to, potential visual clutter of having every subdivision having a sign. I think that was part of the intent when they also started enforcing that, was because of the volume of development we were having at the time, where the amount of signs that would have been put in place, if every subdivision that we had in the 80s and 90s had a sign, we probably would have 100 subdivision signs throughout the community at this point. So, it is something that, and some developers will also take a different view. I think Pulte, we told them they couldn't have a subdivision sign, but they, I think, did not want a subdivision sign. They did not want that. They were selling Batavia, they weren't selling, their subdivisions in particular. So, and that's, like I said, I think that's where that thought process of having that is in there is to limit that. As I said in the memo also, we would want some, only in these situations, them to really be put on properties that are subdivision controlled, have active subdivision, associations or owner associations, because you do have some of the situations like Alderman Sofa mentioned, where the sign has just been adopted by the owner of the property because really they're the only one, when it comes down to it, is responsible. It's on the hook because it's on their property. In most modern subdivisions, it would be on a common property. But so that's where, we would want to have some, right, but not the responsibility to maintain those things as well. Because if, for example, the association fell apart or stopped maintaining the sign, there would need to be some level of assurance that if it posed a problem, it could be removed or things like that. And we don't have that on some of the older subdivision signs that are kind of ad hoc and on properties, because it's not our property to say you have to remove it, but if somebody's maintaining it, then there's really no code compliance issue or anything like that.
I agree with Chris that the idea that you're not from Batavia but from a subdivision. I get that. And that might have been the feeling then. Currently, I'm not opposed to subdivision signs, but I think the easier way to go about this and to maintain the most control is the amendment to a plan development. And taking that route with it.
In this particular situation, it would be the it's the path of least resistance, but it's also the ability, gives this council the most review authority in this particular situation. The plan development for Ritter Farm outlined a minor amendment process and a major amendment process. Staff feels like this would be a minor amendment process, but under the structure of that particular approval, that would still mean it would have to come back to the city council for review of approval. So that's if that is the direction that the council wanted to go in. I don't think staff has seen the actual sign that would be proposed, but we would want to review that and make sure it complies with code, is in a spot that doesn't create any sort of utility issues or drainage issues, because I believe the lot in question would be on the drainage, or it's the detention lot. So we would want to make sure that that location does not impede anything or anything of that sort.
I think that would make the most sense, because I don't see a whole bunch of subdivisions coming and pounding the door down that they want to have to go through the whole process of changing the zoning regulation. We can grant this desire from this group fairly manageable way.
Yeah, I just wanted to add my thoughts. Honestly, I didn't really think about signs being exclusive until I read this memo. And then I thought about my lived experience in Batavia, which has been 12 years now. And, some mentioned here that they don't really feel or have heard that. But thinking back now, I didn't realize that there was a name for it, and I'm identifying it. And I definitely have heard those comments, and I've heard them this year. Oh, you live in that neighborhood, and this and that. So I would agree with some of the things that I read here in the memo, that it does promote that level of exclusivity at times, depending on the neighborhood you live in. I live in a neighborhood that has a sign, and the individual or the family that lives there doesn't necessarily maintain the sign. There was a resident that volunteered in the nearby resident that kind of led the movement to maintain the sign. That resident has since passed. And then the neighborhood was just kind of like, oh, what do we do? You know, this, and then you saw the weeds overgrown and that it just wasn't taken care of. So I know that there are houses that don't necessarily want a sign, that, you know, bought a house and they have to take care of it, but aren't necessarily thrilled about it. I hear the side of, you know, some neighborhoods have it and some don't. I'm leaning into the staff recommendation here of just leaving the policy as is and not adding additional signs. I agree with what the Council of 2008 had decided. In regards to our size of our town, you know, we have a population of 26,500 and counting. That's probably more than that. The mayor reminds us that it's close to 30,000 soon. That's not, you know, anything near the size of the 2.7 million in Chicago. And when you look at a city as Chicago, the third largest in our country, behind New York and LA, they have neighborhoods because they need to, because of their size. So to me, I feel, you know, we have 10.8 square miles, a town, that's our size, compared to the 230 square miles of Chicago. Just again, wanted to make that point that it's a much bigger city. So I don't feel that signs are necessary in our town, based on the memo, based on the discussions that the council had, based on knowing neighborhoods that have signs, and those people aren't necessarily excited about taking care of signs on their property. So I lean into that recommendation by staff to just leave it as is.
White?
As someone that has lived in a subdivision that had a sign that did not have an HOA, did not have an SSA, was not on common ground, and was heavily neglected, I appreciate that staff is going down that path, that if anything were to be added in the future, it would have to fall into one of those, because it's great, Mr. Solfa, that you have one that they maintain really well. Well, we had two they maintained really poorly, and every time you drove into your subdivision, you went right past it. So please keep that in mind as they do move forward. Not here.
And that's what the plan development allows for.
Yeah.
Control over that. So
Yeah.
maintenance, an SSA could be put in place.
Yeah, and I think there is a difference between, you know, if somebody was, you know, if we didn't have this policy and we were approving subdivisions, you know, those are things we would be requiring, is to make sure that, you know, there isn't falls into disuse or things like that. You know, some of the signs we're talking about were, you know, vintage 70s and 80s, or maybe even earlier. So it's where, you know, where that was not as closely taken care of, and so there was a sign, and, you know, you know, the HOA goes away or things like that. So there's, you know, those are just things that happen. And so that's where, if we have those mechanisms, it definitely helps the city try and be more proactive in taking care of those in the future.
I just wanted to share, as another longtime Batavian reading this memo, I did also have a visceral reaction, and it was in the opposite direction of like, ew, more signs. Just that growing up in a handful of places in Batavia, could never live in a place with a sign. So I had that 1994 mentality very much baked in to me. Like Jim said, it's probably not going to be a huge issue moving forward, and I do take some comfort in that. So it's certainly not something I will fight hard against, but I did, as a longtime Batavian, be like, oh, that's nice. And the old school Woodland Hills sign is beautiful, but it probably also predates when Woodland Hills was a actual part of the city, because that was annexed much later after being built. So that probably went in before it was an official city sign. Was it? What year?
There's only 4 houses that have a well in front of them still that are capped.
Subdivision was already linked up to the city as it was built. Other than the first
Down
4
on Bluebell,
houses.
it wasn't because my grandparents' house was not.
Yeah, as much as I can respect some of those feelings, unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to legislate jealousy in this world, okay? And, you know, I think there's not enough reasoning to say no to any of these folks, in my opinion, without, I mean, to me, it's an overstep. It's us putting the lever on something that I don't think we should be, other than how they look aesthetically from a size perspective and things like that. You know, to tell someone they can't have it, or especially for any reason that doesn't land in truth and fact, would be, I think, a tough call. So.
I do like Alderman Malay's suggestion for this particular situation. Forgive me if I missed this earlier in the discussion, but I feel like I read in the memo that if the zoning of the code changed for subdivision signs, that it would include not just the name of the subdivision, but it would open up opportunities for lots of different signs to pop up.
Thanks for raising that point. I was going to raise that as a discussion item. We updated our sign code after the Reed-Gilbert case, which was a very significant sign, change to case law for signage. The city attorney, when we were reviewing that, we drafted a very tailored update to the subdivision sign, information sign section, or the definition to indicate the public service that it provides, or that it is orientation and letting people, wayfinding essentially. So we believe what we have, and defining it very narrowly, would still pass, constitutional muster if somebody challenged it. But I did raise that as a wider point of, as you loosen sign regulations, there's a lot of, there is some of the case law that also talks about content neutrality and things like that, where, if there was case law, or, if there was court cases down the line that said, well, no, because you are still technically reading a sign to determine how you're regulating it. The Supreme Court has said with that case that, you can do that for limited purposes. So that's where we have that. But, any time that we're widening the opportunity for signage, we're starting to create situations where somebody could challenge and say, I want, how's my sign any different? I want to put, a sign, advertising my home occupation, or some other signage you may not see in residential uses right now. But, if it was loosened, or there was a less restriction on that, could down the line, have more signage opportunity, or more signage happening in, our residential areas that are, other than some subdivision signs, generally free of signs.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, we're hitting 9 o'clock. So let me ask a couple questions. So first off, Alderperson Malay, I think you hit it nail on the head. I think that's a great suggestion. Just handle it through SSAs. We're almost built out, right? How often could this possibly happen? Let me ask you this. I live in Timber Trails subdivision. I had no idea until I read this memo. If I wanted to put a sign in my front yard tomorrow, could I do it technically?
Right now, you're prohibited, but if if the direction was to amend the zoning code as it is written right now to allow it, the question would be who can put up a subdivision sign at a certain point.
But I would have to go through a process. I can't just run out and just take a piece of plywood and spray paint on it.
Right, because a sign would require a sign requires permit review. A sign that requires a permit requires at least administrative design review. So there would be a review process for it, but that if we allowed it, that would be the extent of it, really, unless there was additional language to say only this type of entity can put up a sign, but then you're also getting into constitutionality issues.
So technically, if I had an aesthetically appropriate sign that said timber trails and I wanted to put it in my front yard, I could potentially do it, or would saner minds prevail and city council would just stop me, or the planning commission would stop me? Like what happens there? Staff would stop me.
Right now, if you applied for a sign for timber trails, staff would tell you that it's not allowed under the zoning code.
Let's say Alderperson Malay's proposal passes. What happens then?
If you were in Ritter Farm, you could apply for development approval because we would be amending your subdivision's approvals. But timber trails would not be able to put up a sign under that because we would only be
unless they wanted to amend that. Well,
right. I think in that case, there's no plan development approval, but if there was a plan development approval, they could request amendment most likely unless the plan development specifically said you could not have a subdivision sign would probably be the only limitation.
Am I wrong in saying that I think or what I'm hearing, I think, is that we want to change that a little bit. We want to make sure we don't want it to be no. We want it to be, sure you can, but it needs to have an SSA attached to it, or, your HOA needs to take care of it. There needs to be some sort of maintenance contract. We got to go through, see what the sign looks like, all that stuff. I mean, that would be the response moving forward, correct?
If that's the direction of the council, we could go about going through the amendment, the text amendment process for the zoning code, where I think we would have to craft something particular to what you're suggesting.
Because if folks don't, if they get
different than what I was saying. What the alternative that they laid out in the memo is to do an amendment to the plan development for Ritter Farms. Because that's the question at hand there. The advantage to doing that is, yes, we can grant it for that group without having to go and change our whole zoning regulation.
Well, what about everybody else?
Much more involved.
Future ones.
That's what I said. I don't see people coming to pound down the door about, wanting to have subdivision signs here and to put that kind of investment and time and resources into changing that when it's really just one group.
I don't see that there's
a reasonable answer to this question that brought this issue forward.
In terms of inquiries, I think, at least in my recollection, Barkai Farm would be the only other one that is asked in probably 20 years or so. Ritter would be the other.
They would Barkai Farms have a plan development?
They already have one.
Yeah, theirs was the last one.
It was part of plan development, but and so that was a consideration at that point when they requested it.
Okay.
If it pops up with both the Polte developments, I think there should just be a more succinct idea moving forward rather than, okay, we're going to grant it to these guys, but just because we wanted to, and we'll decide later on the rest. It's like, well, no, we got to either make a rule or not.
I think it's part of the development that we would make an amendment to it. So that's a case-by-case basis. And if
no one's going to know if they get a flat no from the city, it's not allowed.
I don't think making that kind of investment to change this for the possibility of something happening in the future, I don't think that's a wise use of resources.
To this point, and we've had one, right? This is the only one I can think of during the time I've been on council.
Why do we have the rule?
Can I call a point of order? There are still people with their hands up at the table.
Ray Anderson?
I was just going to say, I think if Barkey Farms is the last one that requested before Ritter, in my eyes, you go on and go through the plan development amendment. And if someone starts bringing it up, then we start addressing going down the ordinance changing in the zoning code. I think there is a whole process of going through public hearing and all that I don't think we need to do it just for this. I get, Tim, your point about why are we saying no to everybody, but to Jim's point, there's only so many more developments that we're going to put in, and a lot of them are going to have plan development agreements anyways. So that'd be part of that discussion, I would assume. So if Pulte wants to put one in there, that can be a discussion that then we would have at that point in time. And this still keeps people from wanting to go crazy trying to put a bunch of signs in everywhere else in the city, if they so choose.
Yeah, but most of our residential developments over the past several years have been planned developments, and Scott has his hand up, so I don't.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, pretty much every one of you lives in a subdivision. It might be Joseph McKee's Phase 3 subdivision that was platted in 1894. That's not really sexy to have on a sign, for a subdivision. But almost every one of you probably lives in an actual subdivision. So, and some of these subdivisions are very small. There's a subdivision called Rivendell. So those of you that are Tolkien fans, there is a small subdivision that has that. So, the question is, do you want to allow every single one of these to have their own sign? And then to what extent would you want them? I think the idea that we're talking about here, where we say, okay, we'll look at this on a case-by-case basis for these, especially as planned developments, makes a lot of sense. But a lot of these subdivisions that are older, aren't going to have a subdivision sign. If you're close to downtown, a lot of those areas, they're not quite real subdivisions like we conceive of them today. They're older platted areas. They have older homes and things like that. And people just say, well, I live near downtown, or I live in the south side of downtown, those types of things. So those places don't really lend themselves to having a true subdivision sign from that perspective. So, and then we have to also consider, again, the Reed versus Gilbert situation. We have really been hamstrung on what we can have as content on signs. And we have to be very careful about that and the legal issues and legal implications for that. Because once you open the door, as I had said years ago when we talked about billboards, once you open that door, you can't shut that door. So you have to be very cautious and careful about how you craft the regulations and making sure that they are defensible and that they are not something that's going to open the door to something that's going to be an undesirable result.
Anybody in the audience have any comments on this?
I just wanted to clarify my point that I wanted it to come back to us for some sort of an approval. I didn't want it to just open up to anybody to, throw anything up, so.
I have one member of the public.
Sure, somebody.
Come on up.
It's too late. My name is Jim Vanderheiden. I live at 627 Ritter Drive. I was the first buyer of a lot at Ritter Farm. And this November, we will celebrate 20 years as residents on Ritter Drive. Prior to that, I lived in Oak Park. I'm an architect. I lived and worked in Oak Park for 25 years. And when I was going to relocate in Batavia, I wanted to find a lot that I could buy and design and build my own house for my family. And I learned about Ritter Farm. I called Scott Ritter before he even got approval from the city of Batavia with his planned development. And what attracted me about Ritter Farm was Scott's dream that the houses on this 2 blocks would be unique, different. And if you've ever driven down Ritter Drive, you can see that his dream has come true. Every house is different than the house next door. That's what attracts me to, that's what I think is special about Ritter Farm. I live in Batavia. When somebody says, where do you live? I live on Ritter Drive. And to me, a sign on our property that we maintain is a tribute to the Ritter family. I met with them, sat down with their family before they even approached the city of Batavia about their dream for the development of their farm. And I think it's an appropriate tribute to the history of their family and their commitment and their dream, which has come to fruition. That's all.
If there's nothing else, I think we'll leave it as it is. Is that what we're hearing? We'll leave it as it is and deal with it.
Leave the zoning as is, but then work through an amendment to the plan.
Whatever amendment he wants to do, we can get that done, and then that's the path to get the sign up.
Sounds great.
I also did Oak Park to Batavia, so thank you very much, at the same time.
Okay. We will now move on to city council updates. First is project status. Laura?
Sorry, I was taking a tour of Ritter Drive because I was intrigued.
It is definitely different.
First thing I wanted to tell everybody about was that we had the opportunity, the mayor and I and Scott Buning and Andrea Pedraza went to go meet with Mayor Leish in Aurora to discuss that Wagner Road gate. And for those who aren't familiar with that, there's a gate at the south end of Wagner Drive in Aurora that butts up to what's called Mesa Drive, which is basically the entry to the Walmart there. And ever since that neighborhood was built, they have installed a gate which prevents people from their own subdivision from exiting the subdivision to the south and getting over to Kirk Road. Instead, they have to head north all the way up to into Batavia on Wind Energy Pass and come out that way. I'm sure that that is something that benefits us, in particular, the few houses that reside closest to the gate, that in essence, they live on a cul-de-sac where very little traffic goes on that street, probably only for deliveries. And I'm sure that those are difficult because they've got to kind of jockey around and turn around and head out. We had worked with the previous administration on a mutually agreeable solution that would put a concrete curbing there so that cars headed westbound could only make a right into the subdivision, but that cars headed southbound out of the subdivision could turn either left or right. And the previous administration was amenable to putting that in as the new housing subdivisions on Redant were getting built. They were going to continue Mesa Drive all the way through to Redant. But then we had an administration change. And when we contacted Aurora, we came to learn that that was no longer part of the plan. And it appears that the current administration would like to revisit the topic entirely. And so Mayor Leish said that he would facilitate a meeting with the alderperson for this ward as an initial step, and that if that alderperson was amenable, then we would move forward with community meetings to get their buy-in on the solution. But nonetheless, I think this is something that's going to take some time to get through, but I just wanted to make sure that, you were aware that we've kind of gone back to step A in the process.
Can I just bring bring the gate to the meeting next time? I'll just bring it into the meeting down there. I'll take it off and take it down to them.
Yes.
And they can decide what they want to do with the gate.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We have begun the downtown building condition survey fieldwork. All of the properties within the boundaries of that have been notified. Some, are included within that survey, but mostly it was just to make people aware of why there were people with reflective vests out there and clipboards walking around downtown. And let's see, what else did I want to let you know about? Tim Grimm, Chris Bong, Andrea Pedraza, and Nick Ia with the BEC attended the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus seminar on last Monday regarding the Greenest Region Compact. And city staff had filled in what items the city has already completed, but that was a couple years ago. So we want to update that. I guess it's more of an inventory of things that can be done in order to advance the objectives of the Greenest Region Compact, and then work with our commissions in the coming months to address more items on what is a really lengthy list, but I'll share with City Council once we update that inventory. There really are a lot of things in there that our projects have contributed to. The River Street Plaza is getting closer and closer to being completed. I was listening to them cut bricks today, so it really is coming along great, and we're hoping to be complete by the end of the month, and there will be a grand opening. We will share details on that as we get closer to that date. The 2026 street program began on July 22nd and is focusing on the school zones to make sure that those are complete before the start of school on August 13th. And then the last thing I wanted to share is BNSF has added ramps off the elevated surfaces that are adjacent to the Prairie and Wilson Street crossings. And you might recall that we received a number of complaints with regard to the way that BNSF left that finished with 8 to 10 inches off the edge of the sidewalk. So we're very happy that we were able to get that addressed. And I think that's all that I've got, unless anybody has. Yes.
For the North River Street Plaza, you said end of month. That's like Friday. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or is there going to be like maybe a week slot?
Max is.
It would be nice if our materials that we ordered would come in on time. Yeah, so it's not going to be end of this month. We're still waiting on some light posts, the benches, the trellis wall, and so we're discussing kind of when it could be opened. There might still be some features that are not fully done yet, but once we get the brick in, it's more of a safe place to walk and stuff. So those conversations will be happening. We'll keep you posted.
Anything else from anybody? Does anybody else have any other business? Jen?
So the administrator evaluations were due on Sunday. So we are going to extend it one additional week. There was an email that was sent on July 14th. So we will extend it through next Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That
Did that come from you?
Okay. If nothing further, I look for a motion for adjournment.
Second.